Emmanuel Adebayo is an adolescent health professional. He holds a doctorate degree in child and adolescent health and has been involved in adolescent health and development for more than 10 years. He is also a minister at Global Harvest Church, Agodi.
So when you talk about sexuality, we are talking about somebody's feelings. So dictionary says it's eroticism. How many of you know what eroticism means? Erotics. The feeling, the affective feeling towards someone. That's sensuality. So that's one component of sexuality. Another component is intimacy. Intimacy. Now, mind you, sensuality, intimacy does not exactly speak towards a romantic relationship. Okay? Even though sensuality is not tilts more towards romantic relationship, but intimacy is not necessarily romantic relationship. I can have you all have intimate friends. Some of you are intimate with your parents, some of you are not. Some of you know people that are intimate, you have intimate uncles, intimate aunties, cousins that you're close with. That's intimacy. So intimacy is just a function of relationship, and it's also a component of sexuality. Another component of sexuality is identity. And identity is how you see yourself. Now, it's a different thing about who you are or who people see you as. So, who I think you are is not your identity. It is who you think you are that is your identity. How many of you have met short people that feel like they are tall? So, I mean, it doesn't matter if you say she's short or he's short. No, yeah, he's tall in his mind, and that's all that matters. That's the identity. Okay? Now, we have another component of sexuality is behavior. You see that sexuality is actually very wide. It's beyond the things we say. Behavior, the way we behave towards people, the way our characteristics, our traits, is also part of our sexuality. Then we have reproduction. We have reproduction. Now, reproduction is where we come into sexual intercourse, having sex, or making love, or making out. And there's a difference. There's making love, having sex, there's making out. Then, which other one again? Yes, give me the word. And say it now. I think I should talk to me. What? Being in the mood. There's actually a song about that one. Yeah. What's the song? Eh? I want you to know. There's one song about being in the mood. Don't worry, it's not from my mouth to behave. So, reproduction, name. Different terminologies want to give it, but it's basically sexual intercourse. So you see, most times when people think about sexuality, the first thing they think about is sex. Having sex, well, it's just one component, one tiny component. Unfortunately, you see that is the last thing I mentioned. Because even though it is the one we accrue most importance to, it is largely affected by every other thing we have talked about. It is largely affected by your sensuality, your sense of what you refer to as affection, your sense of intimacy. It's also affected by who you think you are, your identity. Do you understand what I'm saying? How many of you know that? I mean, how many of you know about the love language? The love language, what are they?
Acts of service.
Acts of service.
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. What is it? So the point is we have different love languages, and this love language is quality time. Thank you. This means that each one of us had different things that touch the bottom of our hearts. To some people, how many of you have these friends that they cannot talk without touching you? Oh, and there are some people, you know, I had a gist once, I don't know if it's true, it was just gist, that one man bought his wife a big car, very expensive car. He was like, oh, thank you so much, I love this. And then, a few days later, the man got up from work and he made the wife cry with his room. What is happening? What is wrong? What happened? And she said, do you love me? Are you sure you still love me? He's like, see, no, I'm fine. Some people will take that gift as love. Some people want your time. They don't care the gifts you have. They just want your time. Now, a lot of times we focus on getting love and we ignore what makes us love. I want to rephrase that. We focus on finding love. Everybody's looking for true love. People don't know understand what true love is. Everybody's looking for true love. Is that not what most cartoons and movies are about? Yeah. It's true love. I mean, it's one Barbie dancing and if only see, I feel like they should ban Disney. They lie to us. Uncles and aunts come and testify. True love is not what those movies said it was. Snow White. You just sit in one tower, and one prince will just come and sing. It did not work like that. And any guy that has toasted a babe here knows that singing does not work either. You go, right, go to a babe and start singing. She will wait for you to finish the song. So you see, a lot of times we focus on getting something and we ignore the things that will help us get it. So here we want to talk about your sexuality. We want to actually, and most times when we talk about sexuality, we want to talk about your feelings towards opposite sex or non-feelings towards opposite sex. However, there are several other fundamental issues that are ignored, that are very critical to how you fall in love or fall out of love. These days, they say they serve people breakfast. Yeah. Once you have been served, how many people don't have breakfast? Once you chop breakfast, may you not chop breakfast. If you don't understand, don't say amen. So, don't worry, ask your friends. I'm sure they understand. Okay, so sexuality. Now, for today, I want to focus on one, but I want to focus on that reproduction and sexualization. But I'm going to be touching every other thing as I talk in the next 15 minutes. I wanted to show something and ask us, what do you think are the differences between when your father was your age and you now?
There weren't any cars or stuff like that. There has to be something.
Excuse me. Question. Excuse me. Is it your father? She said there was no father. When the father was a teenager, you meant phones. Okay. But seriously, it's not your father, right? Okay, so there were no phones. Okay? What are the differences? Yes, please. It was not as prominent. They spent more time outdoors. Yes. The gadgets have changed. The way things are done have changed. But in most cases, they complain about their parents. You complain about your parents. Your parents didn't give them freedom. Parents don't give you freedom. School was back then. It is bad now. They didn't want to, they wanted to make money. How many people want to make money? People were crazy about career. A lot of you are creating about career, and you know different types of career. So the principles of what guided and a teenager's life in the 1980s is still closely the same with what you are going through. And I'll take a deep thought to say that a lot of times we refuse to talk to our parents or to adults because we think they don't understand. Trust me, they get more than you do. You know why? How many people can you imagine your mother having an ambition? Sorry, wrong word. How many people can you imagine your mother having a crush? Like, imagine mommy in the room with her friends. How many of you can imagine your father saying, "Oh, mom, man, I'm so happy." So the word is, what we all went through it. Crushes were not invented last year. It has always been. Do you know when I had my first crush? Yes. From on one basis, promise me you will not look at me. I had my first crush in primary 3. And I still remember her name. I know the interesting thing. I thought I was out of 2 years. It's a very serious crush. Then I picked another crush again. And then another one in second term. Another one in third term. There's 2. Then I went back for some years 1. I kept moving from one crush to the cycle. Was then I learned, my brother, there's no ending. You keep crushing and crushing until you crush yourself. So when crushes come, let them be their brother before they come and the point is there's really no much difference between what you're going through now and what your parents went through or what adults around you went through. The things might have changed. I mean, sure, we didn't have phones. I don't know how we communicate. But we didn't have phones. I remember I had an aunt in the US then, and you write letters and you have to wait months to get the response. You cannot speak of someone like that, like, oh, we want the global village. Then, in after, thanks to what she said earlier, when she said that you have more information, which is why a lot of you feel like you know more than us. Mind yourself. You think you can buy what I know in years? Yes. You can't. Check out those who find it in the Bible. The son of Solomon, what's his name? Rehoboam. Rehoboam. You see, I don't know who went to Sunday school. Thank you. Rehoboam. Rehoboam had a difficult thing to deal with. He forgot the people that worked with his father. His father was called the wisest man on earth. And his father, the wisest man on earth, had advisors. And then we ignore those advisors. What are you? I don't know that. But you advisors that worked with your father, the wisest man, as the most successful king economically. And you ignore them and ask your colleagues and you went to Harvard together. Suddenly, because there were no Harvard in the days of your father, you are smarter than your father. Just because what you have Google now doesn't make you better than your parents. You cannot buy what a child should experience. You cannot do this. You just give your parents experience. Listen to adults around you. And digress ago. So, back to my point. When we talk about sexuality, most particularly, what people, and that's one thing, I have several things that I want to say on that. I have heard this said over time that you are not mature enough. Question, what is majority? How do you know he's mature? Have you spoken with some 13-year-olds that are smarter and have common sense in their head better than a 13-year-old? Yes. So, but does that make the 13-year-old mature? So, what defines mature? Does being intelligent make you mature? No. Does being smart make you mature? No. Now, let me give you one scientific maturity thing. You cannot be scientifically mature in your life. Not you. Now, at this age when most of you are, your brains are almost the same size as mine. But it has, so the brain has something we'll call folds. It looks squashed together like this. So these folds are, I like to call them folds of wisdom. At your age, the folds are less. As children, have you noticed that children taste everything? You know why? It's their way of recognizing things. That's the way they recognize it. So they keep doing that, and what we call pathways keep forming in the brain. And that's why the best time to teach anybody anything is when you were children. That's the best time. Your brain is sharp enough to learn anything at that age. How would you ask yourself, how did children figure out how did I go to hospital before? How did I figure it out? So between post-childhood age, your brain picks up a lot of pathways. But at this age, what now happens is your brain begins to cut those pathways off. So you find out a lot of adolescents are disoriented and confused. It's because you are meant to be. That's the truth. Your brain is confused. So how would you be? What happens in the brain is, as you grow, the brain now begins to do what we call removal of unnecessary things. So there are some things you have learned as a child. There were some things you have known as a child that are no longer relevant for what you do right now. Your brain begins to cut them off. Your brain begins to cut them off. You begin to lose some skills. Some of you, when you were children, you could fold and sit anyhow. Try it now, you break your leg. Because you did not continue to practice those things, your brain cut off those things. It's what we call, sorry, don't let me bore you again. But the point is, your brain cuts off things, and in the process of cutting off things, your brain is trying to model itself into a personality. And that personality is not dependent on where you find yourself every time. The environment plays a key role. Because, for example, if you like ballet, I know there are schools that do ballet these days. I personally don't know where they do ballet, where they go to present ballet in Nigeria. I guess there must be, but I don't know where they are. When we have important programs, who do we invite? Cultural dancers. Yes or no? How many times have you seen one national program that they invited a ballet dancer? No, I'm serious, but seriously. Maybe tomorrow we will start doing it too. But right now, it is cultural dancers that we invite. So a child that starts learning ballet and does not continue to practice it, the brain cuts off the ability to do that. Why? Because the brain needs space to pick up new skills. So what your brain is doing right now is picking up skills and cutting off unimportant things. And that is why this age is very critical. Because if you do not begin to hone your space and pull yourself together and stay in life, you will pick all sorts of things. The worst people in the world, the worst teenagers. The strongest drug addicts in the world started as teenagers. The best people, the best preachers started as teenagers. Am I right? The best, everything, once you start at this stage, it's a perfect time to pick up new things and get it right. However, if you pick up bad things, you also get them right. That's the other side too. Whatever you pick up at this point, you get it right. Now, it looks like we're not talking about sexuality, but we are actually talking about sexuality. Because when it now comes down to sexual intercourse, having a fast relationship, I have heard people say that you are not mature enough to handle it. Yes, you are not mature enough to handle it because your brain is confused. Literally. Not only the brain development, there's also some secretions in the brain that controls excitement. And at this stage, there is increase in the level of that thing. So you are naturally excited. Sorry, the other way. There is decrease in that. As a child, you had high of it. But as an adolescent, there's a decrease in it. That is why a lot of people go between emotions during an innocence. One moment you are high, next moment you are low. What is wrong with you? I am not happy. Sometimes if you are honest with yourself, you don't know what to do. That's because there's nothing wrong with you, you're just reflect that thing. So these things, and one other thing that is very important, at this age, you are able to judge between good and evil. Correct? You can identify good, you can identify evil, but you are able to judge the true consequences of your reactions or your actions. If you think about some things you have done wrong, you realize you didn't think it through very well. It's not because you did not want to, you don't have the ability to right now. You don't. So whether you should take up a relationship or not, or fall into a romantic relationship, you don't have the ability to handle it. You don't have the ability to handle it right now. Thank you. And I don't know if you guys are. You don't have the ability to handle it. So at this age, what should we concentrate on? There are several issues around the sexuality, and I'm just going to mention them because some of those things have been mentioned. Now, remember, everything I am saying is science. One of the first issues is age of sexual debut. The age at which you start having sex. It has been said that the earlier you start having sex, the more likely you are to have multiple sexual partners. The more multiple sexual partners you have, the more likely you are to catch an STI. The more times you catch STI, the more problem you're likely to have with your reproductive system. And then you are closer to having a child. In the world right now, adolescents are the most people that contract HIV daily. In the world. Amongst all ages, HIV incidence is reducing, but amongst adolescents, it's increasing. You know why? Because they don't understand this. Another issue is some risky sexual practices, which I have mentioned some of them. Multiple sexual partners. This is one you may not think is a big deal because of some of you that are here, but it's a big deal. And that's transactional sex. Transactional sex. Giving sex in exchange for something. What do you think? Anytime you hear transactional sex, the first thing you think about is, oh, somebody that is giving sex for money. That's not true. Not only that. Haven't you heard the if you love me, you have sex with me? It's a transactional sex. Yes, you're giving sex for love. Is love and sex equal? No. Is sex equal to love? No. If sex were equal to love, it means the sex worker loves everybody they have sex with. That is sex. No. So somebody tells you, if you love me, you will have sex with me. That is not love. That's another sex. You understand? And some of the other several consequences that come with this, consequences like unplanned pregnancy in the world right now. Let's come down to Nigeria. Every year we report over 500,000 teenage pregnancies. Every year, there are 500,000 teenagers that get pregnant. I'm saying people between the ages of 15 and 19. We don't even know those that get pregnant between the age of 10 and 14 because we don't have records for them. But between the ages of 15 and 19, over 500,000 every year get pregnant. Where are they? A lot of them get abortion. Among those who get abortion, about, I can't remember the figures very well, but between 30 and 50% die of complications. Why? Because abortion is illegal in Nigeria, so you have to get it the illegal way. So there's so many consequences that come with this thing. How do we deal with it? Which is where I am ending up. There are three major components to dealing with this. There's your environment. What should your school do? What should the government do? What should the pastor do? What should your teacher do? What should holding tender do? There's that. There's what should your parents do? What should your family members do? I won't talk about those. I'll talk about what you do. First of all, there's some things that affect your sexuality. Number one, your temperament. What are the different types of temperament we have? The sanguine, melancholy, phlegmatic, and choleric. And the people who just crash it down into introvert and extrovert. Everything enjoy. But your temperament, who you are, affects your sexuality because it affects how you relate to people. Another thing is your self-worth. What you feel about yourself. You know, somebody that doesn't feel beautiful will be tricked when somebody tells them they are beautiful. Right? You don't think, and see, trust me, these things, they're not a show for faith. It doesn't. It's not, so several people that have gone into prostitution, not even prostitution, several people that have gone into porn movies, making porn. A lot of them are not poor people. Some of these guys are not poor. They're from rich homes. They just like the fact that there are people all over the world willing to pay to look at their bodies. So their self-worth is low. So another thing, you need life building skills. What are life building skills? Communication. You need to learn to communicate. And somebody said about a 10-year-old being actor. My first question would be, what do you want? So if a 10-year-old the guy asks you out, what do you want? Because what you want will determine how you respond. If the guy is asking you out and you like the guy back, you don't attend on the guy. No, you won't. Like, if somebody asks me, I guess you never ask me out. No. So what you don't want? Because your ability to say this is what I want will affect how you communicate what you don't want. Being assertive, your no is your no. Some guys have the funny idea of if I ask her 10 times, she will say yes, finally. It's the job of a guy to ask you out, it's your job to say no. That's the way I see it. A guy feels he can ask you out, it's your job to say, I know the last way. There are several things I have tips to get here, but I feel this is important. And I'm sure we've heard this over and over. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. This is that's our anchor scripture for this camp, right? And we've heard it over. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. The second part of that scripture, I just want to read it in Amplified. In Message translation. It says, don't indulge your ego, lust, or sexual urges at the expense of your soul. My point is, I have said all these things to show you that some of the feelings you have can be normal, but it doesn't mean you have to indulge to it. You have to surrender yourself to it. I don't know if you all get it. You cannot surrender yourself to it. I wish we had more time to go into talking about gender roles and gender classifications, but I needed to leave, because of the time, I needed to leave you with this summary of what I said. No matter what your parents do or don't do, no matter what your teachers do or don't do, it all comes down to you. It's your life. It's your life. And I said something earlier. Your environment affects what you think and see and say and do about yourself. And so it's your responsibility to cultivate an environment that gratifies your soul. One that gratifies your feelings. Feelings change. That's this. Not because you feel you are something today doesn't mean you will feel like that tomorrow. It's feelings. Don't subject yourself to your feelings. How do you reduce a life Christ died for? To feelings. I feel something for you. It doesn't mean it's going to feel like that tomorrow. And that's why there are several breakfast feelings. You should get it right now. You should get it right now. But guys, take this home. Build an environment that glorifies and exalts your soul and your spirit over an environment that builds your loss. Some of you, and I keep directly to girls now, some of you are not in relationships. You don't have a boyfriend, but you enjoy listening to your friends who have a boyfriend tell you how whatever it is they did with their boyfriend was sweet. Let me tell you something. You are just gratifying your loss. That's what you are doing. Guys, you don't talk about girls anyhow. You don't do anything for them, but you stay in an environment where there are guys that do that. You're on your way. After a while, something will just click in your head. Like I said, this is the age where you are picking different things. Watch what you pick. God bless you all.